Hey guys. Hello. How are? Wow, somebody called out my name. That's awesome. Well, it was on the website, I guess. So welcome. This is Meditation for the Performing Artists. My name is Woody Schultz, and I am an actor, producer, writer, and meditator. Let's go down and introduce the rest of our panel. We have Emily Fletcher, we have Barrett Foa, Brad Rader, and the wonderful Ryan Weiss. Do each of you want to give a little quick bio and introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, friends. Like Woody said, I'm Emily Fletcher. I flew in yesterday from New York City, which is where I'm based. I was a Broadway actress for about 10 years. I did 5 Broadway shows, 3 national tours. And then I found meditation, and it changed my whole life. It cured my insomnia. I stopped going gray. I stopped getting sick. I stopped getting. And she was like, "What?" Her head was like, "Hang on." This practice really transformed my life in a ridiculous way. So I left Broadway in 2009, went to India, and started a 3-year training process to be a meditation teacher. And then I started a company called Ziva Meditation in New York and LA, and I've been teaching meditation full-time for about 5 years. Well, full-time, and I also taught acting for 4 years, but I don't teach acting anymore, but I'm happy to talk about it today. And I started the world's first online meditation training called Ziva Mind, which I'm really proud of. And I've taught about 1,600 people to meditate. About 400 of those were actors. And I have a dog named Muggsy with an underbite who's really cute. The end.
Who should have his own Instagram, by the way.
Yeah. I should change my company's name to Muggsy Meditation.
My name is Barrett Foa. My dog Scotch and Muggsy are boyfriend and girlfriend. So I was born and raised in New York City. I went to school for musical theater. I went back to New York, worked on Broadway, off-Broadway, regional stuff for about 10 years, moved out here about 7 years ago, and then landed a series regular on NCIS Los Angeles. I've been doing that, and probably the first 3 or 4 years of that were incredibly stressful. And then I took this person's class, and then the next 3 or 4 years have been not stressful. Thank you, meditation, and Emily Fletcher. So that's where we're at. Yeah.
My name is Brad Rader. I do not have a dog. No, I am an actor, writer, director, producer, meditation teacher. Emily and I were fortunate enough to have the same training. I have always been an actor. I went to NYU. I started a theater company out here in Los Angeles called Red Dog Squadron. I've had a slew of canceled series and pilots that no one has ever seen, as I'm sure there are many of you who have the same experience. But meditation really, when I learned 10 years ago, revolutionized my life. And it revolutionized my work as an actor and as a creative person. And then I traveled with my teacher all over the world and as his apprentice and organized courses for him. He trained me to teach, and I've been teaching for the last 5 years to actors and directors and people in the film industry. And it's a really fantastic practice for human beings, but especially for creative people. So looking forward to talking about that.
My name is Ryan Weiss. Let's see, I'm a triplet from Los Angeles. I too had a career on Broadway and left that career. I wanted to produce, so I went and worked at what used to be Endeavor, became WME, left there, ran development for Craig Zadan and Neil Marin at Storyland Entertainment. So I had a big gamut of experience from actor to agent to producer. Looked at all that one day and was like, this is so not what I want to be doing with my time, with my life, with my energy. And so I went on about a year journey to figure out what that was going to look like. And about 5 years ago, launched a life coaching practice. The big tenet of that is meditation. So for 5 years, I've been coaching private clients, teaching workshops around the world. I get to go speak at really cool experiences and help ground people. And something I hope we will ground in today is remembering the why you do what you do, and letting that fire burn your every day, your every word, your every written word, your every spoken word. That's me.
Fantastic. Thank you. So first of all, as you can see, meditation also makes you very attractive. This is yes, we've already had our first costume change. Yes. So I do want to talk a little bit about the basics of meditation and the various different styles. But before I get into that, I would like to actually get a few more specifics about when and how exactly meditation came into each of your lives. If you could want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I found Vedic meditation, which is what I teach, about 10 years ago, about 9.5 years ago. I was doing a chorus line on Broadway. The one with the gold leotards and the high kicking. And I was understudying 3 of the lead roles. This will be fun to talk to you guys about. I was understudying Sheila, Judy, and Val. And I was clearly hired to play Sheila. I was a decent Judy, and I was a terrible Val. And I mean terrible. And turns out that the girl who played Val called out all the time. She just wrote me on Facebook a few months ago. I was like, I'm so sorry about that. And I'm like, girl, it's fine. If it hadn't been for that, I would not have started a meditation empire. Anyway, she was calling out all the time. And I would sometimes be chilling in my dressing room, doing my taxes, and someone would get on the loudspeaker and they would say, Emily Fletcher to the stage. And I would start panicking because I wouldn't know which character I was playing. So I would grab all 3 leotards, run down 7 flights of stairs. Someone would put me in a costume. And you guys, I'm not kidding. Sometimes I would be on stage before I found out who I was playing. I'd be like, oh, there's no Val on stage, so I guess I'm Val. Tits and ass. And then just proceed to suck at it. Some people are really good at swinging. I am not one of them. And I was really bad at it. And then the worse I was, the more stressed I got. And the more stressed I was, the worse my performance was. And then I stopped sleeping for about 18 months. I didn't sleep through the night. So not surprisingly, I started going gray at the tender age of 27. I started getting sick. I started getting injured. And I was miserable. So here I am on Broadway, living my dream, doing the thing I've wanted to do since I was 7, and I was miserable. And thankfully, this amazing woman sitting next to me in the dressing room, Barrett's heard this story 1,000 times, was the girl sitting next to me was understudying 5 of the leads, and this woman was nailing it. Every dance she did was a celebration. Every song she sang was a celebration. Every bite of food, she'd be like, this is sensational. That was supposed to be an Australian accent, but she was Australian. So anyway, I was like, what do you know that I don't know? And she said, I meditate. This was 10 years ago, right? So no one was talking about meditation like they are now because it wasn't all the neuroscience. And so I didn't really believe her, so I just kept sucking at my job and going gray and having insomnia. And then finally it got so bad that I said, I have to try something. So I went along to this intro to meditation talk. I liked what I heard. It made sense to me. So I signed up for this 4-day course. And the first day of the first course, I was meditating. And then that night, I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. And I have every night since, and that was about 9.5 years ago. Then I stopped getting sick. Haven't been sick in 8 years. I stopped going gray. I'm 37 now. I have like 2 gray hairs. I was legitimately going gray at 27. And I also haven't been sick. Haven't been injured. And I'm also like in a really good relationship. I got married a year ago, and I used to be in borderline abusive relationships. And I also feel like I never had an eating disorder, but I didn't not have an eating disorder. And I used to just be like really obsessed with everything I put in my body and what it was gonna do to my body. And now I just eat food that I like and I like it. And I didn't realize that until about 2 weeks ago, how obsessed I used to be about my food and my body. And now I'm just living my life. Was that the question? Did I answer the question?
I think many, yes. That was incredible. Barrett, for you, sir.
Let's see. So I had a friend who took Emily Fletcher's course, and I had kind of been hearing about it, and they said it was really great. And I was like, but it's how much money? Because it's a little, and now everyone's like, wait, what? And I'm like, that just seems like a lot of money for, and he's like, it's the best money. I'm not gonna say it now. You'll find out if you want to. No, it's not crazy. I mean, it's crazy, but it's not crazy. No, what I'm saying is the point of this is that it's worth it. He's like, it's the best amount of money that I've ever spent. I'm like, no, but, and he's not a rich person. And I'm like, no, but I don't, how do you justify? He's like, just do it. I'm like, that sounds risky. The other thing is once you do pay that money, you have skin in the game, which is different than, I went to that free meditation course and it was good, but like maybe I won't really do it because like I didn't pay any money. I feel like there's something about paying the money that is really important to it. And that's weird, but that worked for me. I'm like, at least I'll try it for this, the adjustment period where you're like, is this going to be a part of my life or is this not? Anyway, 2.5 years ago, I took this person's class and I have been meditating every day, twice a day. And it's a non-negotiable thing. It's like I brush my teeth, I meditate, I shower, I meditate, I sleep, I meditate. Like those are things that I do in my day. And I don't have to you just work it in. It's crazy, but you just work it in. And you're like, I can't possibly spare all that time. I'm such a busy person. You brush your teeth, you take a shower, you meditate. Because it's this, when we talked about this a little bit, it's like addictive in the best way. And sometimes you get to a wall and you're like, I'm probably going beyond the question, but who cares? You got to kind of get to a wall and you're like, this is frustrating. I'm not really, should I be floating or should I be levitating or, I'm a little in my mind today. But then you just go back that night and you just have like the best dive ever. And you're like, yeah, that's why I do it. And you just do it. You just show up and you do it, and it just makes your life better at the end.
Well, I came to meditation in a very similar way as Emily. And at the same time, I was in a chorus line as well. No,
Love to see you in that gold leotard.
And she's right. This was 10 years ago, before meditation has kind of had the upsurge. Every 60 years or so, it has this resurgence. But 10 years ago, I was on a TV show. I had all of these trappings that we learn are supposed to make us fulfilled. And I had this model of importing fulfillment from achievements and from the world. And I was seeing a therapist, and I kept recycling all of these problems and my stresses and my anxieties. And one day he said, you should learn to meditate. I was like, huh? But I'm Jewish, Jews don't meditate. And I promptly ignored his advice for 3 months. And then another television actor, a kid named Josh Radnor, who's on How I Met Your Mother, that great show, he said, you got to meet my teacher. He's the best in the world. I said, oh, that's interesting. And I went to this lecture, and our teacher has this fantastic way of describing meditation in terms of, the brain and body connection and biology and neuroplasticity, quantum physics, cosmology. And I was very skeptical, but I was interested, and I learned, and very, very quickly I got it. I mean, the thing with these practices is, we can talk about all of the benefits and how good it is for the health and for your well-being and for creativity. But it's very much an experiential thing. And experiencing settling down and unwinding stress and just feeling happier and more connected completely transformed my daily life and my experience. And as an actor, I've always been interested in preparation. An actor prepares. This is the most famous book on acting. And with all of the studying that I had done, I was very well versed in how to prepare for a role and how to step into a rehearsal hall or step onto set. But I was ill prepared for life. We don't really learn how to kind of be in the world. And there's so many stressors today. So this practice, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of meditation practices out there. But practices like these are as much about our work as they are about our life, our relationships, our responsibilities, our health, our well-being. So that's how I got into meditation 10 years ago. And then, as I mentioned, I apprenticed my teacher, and we traveled around, and he trained me to teach. And it's just been a fantastic journey ever since.
So I'd rewind to 10 years ago when I was leaving. Well, I guess it was a little after that. Well, I started my yoga practice about 10 years ago. And at the time, it was I had been doing Wicked on Broadway, and I had a zillion injuries and bilateral bicep tendonitis, and I swung Wicked as well, right? So I was covering 12 tracks. Same thing. It's like, am I a monkey or am I a little person today? I don't know what I'm gonna go do right now. And so I turned to yoga as sort of like a stress relief, a physical healing of my injuries. And I was really blessed to have some incredible yoga teachers who were really mindful about the power of meditation. So that's one sort of how it started. Then in this gap year when I left the development job and wasn't really sure where I was gonna head, I walked into a dinner party at my friend Sophie's house and walked up the stairs and saw this woman, and she saw me, and we just felt, you know when you feel that connection with somebody, you're not quite sure why. And for the next 2.5 hours, we just sat and talked about everything. And it was one of the most phenomenal conversations I've ever had. And it actually we didn't exchange names. And if she had told me her name, I wouldn't have known at the time. And then I left the conversation, and my friend went, "Do you realize who you were just talking to?" I was like, "No, I'm not really sure." He goes, "That was Marianne Williamson." So if you're familiar with her, from there we launched into a really beautiful friendship, mentorship kind of relationship. Marianne, if you're not familiar with her, wrote a book called A Return to Love. It's the book that launched Oprah's book club. She's a teacher of a text called A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles is a metaphysical text that takes Christic beliefs and applies them to your daily life. So there's a very long sort of dissertation of the belief system of A Course in Miracles. It calls a miracle a shift in your thinking from fear to love. And then there's 365 daily lessons. She suggested that I started to do that. Exactly a year after I started doing the course was when I launched my coaching practice, which is interesting. But the practice of A Course in Miracles, it's like there's many doors that all lead to the same place. And the practice of doing Course in Miracles, of every day having a thought that I would contemplate, was this beautiful entryway, I didn't really realize it at the time, into meditation for me. Having a practice that I would turn to every single day. I then got attracted to this form of yoga and meditation called Kundalini yoga and meditation. It's 6,000-year-old yoga science, they call it. It incorporates mantra with a physical, asana practice, with a breathwork practice. That has its whole library of different meditations and different practices, and that I just so felt was so healing for me and so powerful for me. And naturally, I started offering those lessons to the coaching clients that I was working with and seeing the effect that they were having on their lives. And then I got into Vedic meditation, because Emily's been in my life for some time now. And that, with everything else that I was doing, dropped me so deep into myself that it became a non-negotiable, not only for myself, but for every coaching client I work with. I send them to her course, I send them to Vedic teachers, because what I get to notice as a coach is that we all have our own hang-ups, right? We all have our own shit that we're dealing with, and it's all a different story, but for the most part, what I get to see is all the same stuff over and over again. And there's got to be something you do to scrub that stuff away so you can live your life in more freedom, especially for us creatives. We have to be free to let that creative flow move through us. So meditation has just become a non-negotiable in order to do that in my life, and hopefully for everyone I work with.
Very cool. Thank you, guys. Actually, to kind of dive in a little bit deeper with the various practices, I know, Emily, that you and Brad share sort of a similar technique and background as far as your training. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more in detail about maybe some different types of techniques, kind of the root of Vedic meditation, which is what you practice and teach. And then Ryan, if you would speak a little bit about how the form of meditation that you teach kind of varies from that, yet still includes the basics that, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to just set sort of a foundation, because I think the word meditation has become a bit like the word food or like the word sports, right? You say the word food and it means thousands of different things. Cheeseburger, chia seed smoothie, broccoli, all of those things are food. And yet they're going to do very different things to your brain and body. And this is a little bit what the word meditation has become. It's become this umbrella to catch all for any time someone closes their eyes. And nowadays it's not even walking meditation. Or like people tell me all the time, like, oh, cooking is my meditation, or exercise is my meditation, or Facebook is my meditation. I'm like, namaste. No, it's not. Facebook is no one's meditation. So like Bradley said, there are thousands of different styles of meditation. I'm 100% biased, but here is my attempt at a non-biased description of them. There are thousands of different styles. At their root, they're all stress-relieving tools. And yes, ultimately, I do believe that all roads lead to Rome. I think any meditation practice worth its salt is going to allow you to be the most amazing version of you. But they are actually pretty drastically different roads to get there, right? So of the thousands of different styles of meditation, most of them can fall under one of two umbrellas. Mindfulness, which is, very popular buzzword these days, which is sort of like a directed focus style of meditation. And honestly, when we say the word meditation, if you haven't been trained in specifically what Bradley and I teach, probably when you hear the word meditation, you think something along the lines of stopping your mind from thinking, focusing on your breath, deep breathing, or thinking about happy thoughts. And actually, what I teach has nothing to do with any of those things. The good news here, I don't want to go too far into what I teach. So mindfulness is a directed focus style of meditation, meaning that you're focusing on a flame, you're focusing on your breath, someone is guiding you through a visualization. It's all beautiful, right? But it's keeping you in the realm of thinking. I would define mindfulness as the art of bringing your awareness into the present moment, which is incredibly important, especially as an actor, but it is a waking state practice. And I actually would say that mindfulness is a very advanced technique if you do not have a meditation practice. Now, what I teach, this Vedic meditation thing, is more of like Ryan said, it's like scrubbing your nervous system. It's like going in and getting rid of the trauma and the stress that is stored in your cellular memory. And the way that Vedic meditation does that, and it's sort of, this is like the other umbrella, right? The other thousands of styles of meditation are not about directing your focus. They're actually about letting go. It's about surrendering, and it's about giving your body rest. So in Vedic meditation, your body's getting rest that's somewhere between 2 to 5 times deeper than sleep. And when you give your body the rest that it needs, it knows how to heal itself. And one of the things that it heals itself from is stress. And the less stress you have in your nervous system, the more able you are to be present in the right now. So I would actually call mindfulness a byproduct of meditation versus, it can be a practice itself, but if you have so much stress in your body, practicing mindfulness every minute of every day is like torture. It's really hard. I mean, you guys know this as being actors, when you're nervous in an acting class and your teacher's like, just listen, just be present. And you're like, I'm fucking trying. And like all you're thinking about is like, what's my name? What do I do? How do I walk? It's just like, it's so easy when you're watching someone being present, but when you're up and you're nervous, it's a different story. And so my hypothesis here is that meditation, we do it to get good at life, not to get good at meditation, And so when you give your body this deep rest, this sort of surrendering practice that we do, body lets go of a lifetime of stresses, which in turn makes you more mindful. So that was sort of just setting the stage for the different practices, yeah.
And I'd add, in the context of creatives and of actors, unwinding stress by virtue of any practice that you have is going to make you more available. It's going to make you more adaptable. And certainly as a short-term tactic, when those nerves come, if you're on set or off stage waiting to go on, it's great. But regular practice, right? And we recommend twice a day practice, cultivating this state of beingness, right? This availability. That's everything. Because then you get on set and the nerves don't come at all. Because you have cultivated an experiential knowledge of not who you are, right, but what you are. And that what, beyond the personality, beyond whatever character you're playing, is that underlying source that just gives way to all creativity and is the stuff, right, that we're looking for in rehearsal or in front of the camera, that magic, the stuff that just happens.
So has anyone here practiced Kundalini yoga before? Couple, awesome. So Kundalini, I look at a difference between like meditation, and I'm sorry if there's any Kundalinis in here that are gonna have a problem with me differentiating between Kundalini and meditation, because Kundalini, the world is called yoga and meditation. But I look at Kundalini as like a priming practice. Like, it primes me for my day. It primes me for a meeting. It prepares me. It energizes me. It revs me up. It gets me going. So like when Emily and I teach together, I'll often teach this morning practice that I teach, which I do before I do my Vedic practice, because it's like taking a shot of caffeine for me, which is a heavy breath practice with a mantra practice, with a physical asana practice. It's something that's incredibly invigorating. It lifts me up, it fills me up, and it fills me up in a sustainable way. So rather than, and I love my coffee, I still do drink coffee, I'm not reliant on it. So if it's not like I can't, like my parents, it's like if they do not have their coffee, they cannot survive. I'm not that way, thank God. I have my practice for that. I have my breath for that, which helps tremendously because it's much more sustainable. So Kundalini for me, so like I said before, it's a mantra practice. So mantra, man means mind, tra means wavelength. In the Kundalini world, they believe that these mantras are things that your mind already knows. So if you say the mantra Sat Nam in this language Gurmukhi, that is the basis for Kundalini yoga, that's sort of like our Advil mantra. That's like the basic mantra. Sat Nam means truth is my essence. And think about like how many thoughts you're thinking every day that are the opposite of truth is my essence, right? Like, I'm so stressed out. Where's the next paycheck coming? What am I doing with my life? What the fuck's going on in my relationship? Kundalini teaches us to refocus our thinking to a thought that is actually going to support you stepping into the world in a way where you actually believe in yourself, where you actually love yourself. So these mantras have had a really powerful effect on my life. The breath component, which is the second component, is unbelievably effective. We need to learn how to breathe. We did a thing together, and at one point I did a breath exercise, and this woman raised her hand and was like, "I can't do it. How do I do it?" And it's like, isn't that incredible? That we don't actually know how to breathe. I mean, I assume as actors you got that training, but the breath work from Kundalini yoga is deeply strengthening from like deep inside. And then the physical asana practice of Kundalini, I always say like you got to deal with your stuff somewhere. Right? Like you're gonna have to deal with your stuff, with your buttons, with the stuff you picked up from mom and dad before you were 7 years old when your subconscious mind was totally forming itself. You're gonna have to deal with it somewhere. You might as well deal with it on your yoga mat so that you're not dealing with it everywhere else in your life. And so Kundalini, if we're doing 10 minutes of leg raises with a breath pattern and a mantra, which sounds horrible because it is, it's about training your mind to get past the block that you perceive is there for yourself, working through it, which for me helps me to find an inner strength, a gut, a perseverance that translates to every other area of my life. So in that way, Kundalini is incredibly useful for me. And so for myself, I'd say in my life coaching practice, there's the Kundalini yoga, there's this Vedic meditation, and then there's this ideology of A Course in Miracles that all feeds together really beautifully to give people a foundation that's really powerful and strong to do what they really came here to do.
Fantastic. Awesome. And you guys have touched on a little bit some of the, I think some of the obvious and maybe not so obvious benefits for creatives and performers that just sort of flow naturally from a regular practice. I'm wondering, we can start with Barrett and then everybody, since you all have background as performers. Really, what sort of fundamental shifts did you notice post having a meditation practice, a regular practice, in your life as a performer? whether it's in the actual moment or in the way you approach it, or?
I think it was more about realizing when you meditate, this is something that probably Emily can talk more eloquently on, but I know it and I feel it, but she can talk about it. But I feel like I'm accessing something bigger and realizing that I'm part of something bigger without being like, I'm part of something bigger. I'm just saying my mantra to myself, but like, it like pulls back the lens a little bit, and to steal something from Vedic language, like I'm less of a wave and I'm more of an ocean. But you know what I mean? But like, I'm still a wave, but I'm like part of the ocean. And so when they're like, action, and like LL Cool J is looking at you in the face and you're like, what's my line? It's a little less like Cindy Brady with the red light on, like, I can't remember what's going on. And it's more like, it's just a part of, okay, now what? Like, oh yeah, let me just say this line. And if I screw up, we'll just do it again. Okay, anyway, next. You know, like, it's just like you're part of something bigger, and it's not as much about you, because you've pulled back the lens and you've practiced that twice a day for 2.5 years now for me. And that, yeah, do you want to, I feel like you...
Well,
Okay.
Actually, I would love to follow up a little bit, though. I mean, just because in when you were introducing yourself and giving a little bio, you mentioned that sort of the first 3 years of doing the show were rather miserable for you.
Yeah.
Which, I'm sure to, many of the unemployed actors who may be in the room, they were, well, how could you possibly be miserable? Your series regular, your regular paycheck, your, a certain amount of celebrity.
Which is what made me even more miserable. Like,
exactly.
asking myself that question, I was like, why are you miserable?
Yeah. So,
be happy.
So what exactly changed that you were, once you started meditating, what was that profound shift?
I think the thing is that it was so profound that it wasn't profound. Or it wasn't profound, so it was profound. It wasn't like a moment. It wasn't a thing that happened. I just started realizing that I was like, oh, I'm just not as like, there's not like a spotlight on me as much, and I'm just not in my head as much, and I don't want to say don't care as much, but like, I don't care as much. It's really nice not to care. It's nice to be like, I'm just this character and I'm talking to LL Cool J, and that's just a thing that is happening, instead of like, I care so much about how it comes out of my mouth, and I feel like I was just under a microscope. And again, like, yeah, it pulled back the lens. It just made it bigger. I'm like, oh, I'm just part of something. And if I get fired or if they kill me off my character, you know what happens? Then I go to the next job. You know what I mean? Instead of like, I have to keep this job. It's so important to me. And like, and like my parents were also like in my ear, like, I hope your character doesn't get killed. Like thanks, mom. Like, or, like we're good. Like, I'm still on it. Like, they keep renewing my contract. Like, let's just go with that. But like, I had this fear, and I remember like asking a friend, and she was like, then I go on to the next thing. I'm like, but what if they kill you? What if they kill us? Anyway, so.
Let's get here.
Yeah, no, and then, but you're like, but then that's just like the course of life. That's just then you just go on, and it's so freeing not to care. It's freeing to meditate. You just like, there's just a lightness to it.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. I had a similar experience in that my first Broadway show, I was 22. And 3 weeks after I got it, it's a thing I wanted to do since I was 7. And 3 weeks after I got the show, I was the saddest I'd ever been in my whole life. And it's so easy to think on the front end of that, before you've achieved the goal, it's so sexy and enticing and easy to think that your fulfillment lies on the other side of the attainment of that goal. But it doesn't, you guys. It does not. Your happiness does not lie on the other side of any person, any job, any agent, any zero in your bank account. Please hear this, take it to your grave, act on it right now. Your fulfillment does not exist outside of you. It exists inside of you, right here, right now, period, end of story. And I wish that I had known this. I wish that I had the intelligence or the training or someone to show this to me when I was 22 and I was actually living the lesson, because I wasn't smart enough to get it. So I just thought, well, it must be my next Broadway show and it must be the next one or the next boyfriend. And I did that for 10 years. And what I realize now is that I was more interested in the happiness of pursuit than I was the pursuit of happiness. Right, so I just want to ask you guys this question. When in your life have you been the happiest? My hypothesis is that we feel the happiest as humans when we are using our specific skill sets to best serve the need of the time, when we are actively engaged in something that we believe important and that we're using our gifts to serve that need. When you're really working towards something that you love, that you think matters, that's honestly when we humans feel the happiest. And once it comes, it's like Christmas morning when you open the gift and you're like, oh crap, I wanted a blue one. You know, it's like we've done the research about, was your happiness in the bike when you were 12 or the car when you were 16 or the wedding ring when you were 24 or the kid leaving the house or the marriage or the divorce. Like we always think, what's next, what's next, what's next? And then we die. Actually, I'll tell you guys a quick story, and I'll make it quick, because I'm sure you guys have 1,000 things to say about this. One of my meditation teachers was at Madonna's Oscar party. So you know she throws a party every year after the Oscars, and it was the year that Colin Firth won his Oscar for Best Actor. And my teacher was just sort of there. He doesn't drink, so he was like hanging out, just kind of watching. And he said that anyone said, Colin was literally standing like with the statue in his hand, and all anybody said to him all night long was, hey man, congratulations, what's the next job for you? Do you know what's happening next? What's your next movie? What's your next project? What's next? What's next? What's next? He's like, I just won! I just climbed Mount Everest for actors! Can we just celebrate this for a second? Right? And it's like, but we don't do that. That's not in our nature as humans. And so what I love about meditation is that it gives you access to your fulfillment in the only place that it resides, and then you get to use your desires as nature's GPS. You then get to use your desires as an indicator of where is nature trying to use me to deliver my gifts versus where do I need to go to fill myself up, which PS, one is an addiction and the other is a creative act.
See? Friends who are meditation teachers, you get little Oprah aha moments all the time.
What was the question?
I didn't answer it.
No, it's these are
Just
all
as basically as a performer.
Yeah, as a performer. You know, there are some very practical things that I've noticed as a meditating actor. I mean, when I first learned, this is back in 2005, I was up for a little film, and I was traveling. I was in Africa, and you know, we heard that I was close, and I had to fly back a little early, and I was not prepared, and I was sleep deprived and jet lagged, and I was nervous. But I had this practice, and you know, I hadn't done this before, but I thought, okay, you know, I'll just sit in the waiting room while everyone else is pacing and going through their lines. I didn't know the lines very well, but I was like, you know, I don't have a lot to lose except for the lead in this movie. I'm just gonna sit and get quiet, settle down. And it was such a different experience walking into that room. You know, I didn't care as much, which, as you all know, is like, you know, that's the prize. If you can really want a role and walk into that audition room and not give a, you know what, it's infinitely more attractive and you're more relaxed. And so I walked in and I ended up getting it. And you know, it was the right role for me at the time, but I definitely credit meditation to that experience. Now, there's another kind of interesting thing that happens in meditators and meditating actors, that there's a sixth sense that is dawning here. You know, we all know actors who just have this presence, whether it's on stage or in front of the camera. One of my acting teachers used to call it this undismissible quality. You know, he or she walks out onto stage and you just cannot take your eyes off them. So there's a sixth sense, this beingness, this quality of being able to really be present and really listen, right? Listening and responding to your scene partner. That's all it is. I think Viggo Mortensen once said, all you really need to play the scene is air and water, right? And you can do that and you can be present if you don't have all of the fog of stress kind of clouding your experience, right? You prepare and you prepare and you prepare, and then when you get to set, you let it go. And so having routines, having practices is part of that preparation. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I did this kind of little experiment. It wasn't very little. I directed a feature film recently, and it was very much inspired by Eastern philosophy and inspired by my journey of finding fulfillment within. But I decided to kind of tend towards casting and crewing up with meditators. And Emily Fletcher appears in the movie, as well as other luminaries in our community. And it was fantastic because we were meditating on set, not all at the same time. But I would meditate when they were setting up, and then my DP would meditate at lunch, which sometimes was at 2 a.m. when we were shooting overnight. And through the whole process, the investment team and part of the post-production, the sound crew, all meditators. And I'll tell you something, these were just amazing people to work with, adaptable, friendly, cooperative, collaborative, and it really made the thing possible at the end of the day.
Bravo, Bradley.
Incredible, yeah.
So, have you all seen Elizabeth Gilbert's TED Talk, Elusive Creative Genius? You've heard me talk about this. Yeah. So for those of you who haven't, this woman is a gift because she's reminding us what art is. She talks about how in the greatest renaissances so let me rewind a little. If you go see a great piece of theater, you might walk out and say, wow, that actor is a genius. That director is a genius. You have a great piece of food. Wow, that chef is a genius. Today in the modern world, we consider that people are geniuses. But what she talks about in this fabulous TED Talk and also in her book, Big Magic, which I really highly recommend, she talks about how in the greatest renaissances, this idea that a human is a genius would have never been spoken. That rather the belief was that the person has a genius. So they would have said, Da Vinci has a genius. They would have never said he is a genius. And that distinction is really important because I believe that each of us are a vessel. We are not the water, we are the faucet. Through us, the creativity moves. And it's our job to keep the faucet clean. And if that faucet is clean, then we'll be able to walk into that audition room and be focused on what am I giving here as opposed to what I'm getting. Right? So often we ask the question, what am I going to get out of this? Am I going to get the job? Am I going to get the agent? Am I going to get the respect that I'm looking for? Am I going to be seen, right? What am I getting? And subconsciously, we are completely manipulating ourselves out of the job when we are focused that way. That lack, sort of like what Bradley was talking about, that sixth sense, it shows up. One of the experiences that I had when I was working at WME was that I got to see regularly, we'd get a lot of phone calls with the person getting the offer for whatever the job was. And I'd always ask, because I started noticing a pattern, I'd always ask, why did they get the job? And I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times, the casting director would say, or whoever I was talking to, the producer would say, we can't quite put our finger on it. That means something to me. That means they don't know, but they know what they felt. And so if we walk into the room, so one of the things that I'm a big fan of is if I'm working with somebody who's going into a meeting or an audition, before they go into that room, and let it be cheesy as all hell, to fill that room with your love, to fill that room with light, to imagine every single person that's going to be in that room, whether it's a casting director, or a producer, or the assistant, or the associate, whatever, to picture them all waking up in the morning, to see them waking up with a smile on their face, to see them happy and fulfilled, to see them driving to work with no traffic, with their favorite music coming on the radio, to just literally pray for their happiness, because they will feel that from you when you walk into the room. And then you will be set up to be able to give that gift, to be able to be spontaneous, to allow your genius, which you have no more and no less than Julia Roberts, you have it just as much as everyone else. The question is, are we open enough? Is our stress level down enough for us to be able to have room and access to that creative genius that's literally knocking on the back of your heart right now saying, hey, I really want to be born into the world. I have so much I want to do with you. Can you please get out of your own way? Can you please stop all the small talk chatter going on in your mind? We've got work to do together. So the practice of meditation, the practice of mindfulness, the practice of spirituality, whatever that is for you, is vital for the creative process. It's literally creativity. One last thought. The Course in Miracles says that we are here to create as the universe creates. And that's all the universe does, is it's just consistently creating. And that we're here to do exactly that, just to continue to create. Amen.
Love that. Beautiful, beautiful. And to kind of follow up on that, you said something, Emily, in one of your recent videos that was another one of those little aha moments that really is kind of what you all were just basically talking about, in which you said, detachment is sexy, neediness is not.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt.
Right? And you were speaking in general terms, but I mean, if you think about it, as performers, when you're going into an audition room, I mean, how absolutely true is that? When you are so desperate to get that job and book that job and pay your rent, and they're all really valid needs and wants and desires. But when you go in there reeking of it, man, they can smell it a mile away. They really can. And if you have a regular practice and you have the tools to be able to leave that at the door, it's not saying that that meditation will magically, abolish all of your worries and problems in life, but it gives you the tools with which, to tell you how you deal with these, how in certain situations you say, okay, yeah, I got this shit going on, but you know what? I know how to drop it. I know how to be present. I know how to be grounded and centered, and to really just focus on the situation at hand and the people in the room. And that's why I love what you were saying, and I think that's sort of what you were touching on too, with standing there face to face with LL Cool J. It's like all of a sudden you have that detachment. It's like, it's just a thing. It's a thing. I'm here. We're doing it. It's no big deal. And then that was that sort of subtle, profound, yet unprofound shift that you felt. But, yeah.
I hear someone's mind thinking, okay, so if this is going to make me a little more detached, what is that going to do to my emotionality as an actor? And I get this question a lot from actors and performers. There's a concern, which kind of goes hand in hand with people not in the industry who say, well, I need my stress to be productive. You don't know me. When I'm really stressed out, I get so much done. And it's not really the stress that's doing the trick. Deadlines and pressure are fantastic for getting stuff done, but the stress just gets in the way. For actors, practices like these don't make you so detached that you're unemotional. In fact, it's the opposite. What I found is that my emotionality is so much more readily available. You ever see a kid, right? A toddler, 4 or 5 years old, who it's the end of the world that they can't get the second cookie. You look at this kid and you're like, wow. And then 2 minutes later, whether he or she gets the cookie or not, it's the happiest creature in the world. There's a real suppleness, right? There's a real return to homeostasis. The body is able to express an emotion, which is important for an actor. You have to have access to whatever it is right away, but then it doesn't stay with you for 3 hours. You get angry in traffic, and then there's a return to normalcy. So that suppleness is something that I think grows and grows once stress unwinds from the system, and we can really experience that truer nature of what we are.
Yeah, I do think that's a really sort of extraordinary aspect of having a regular practice, is that one of the other things I noticed is when you are sort of accessing those emotions, and often those really uncomfortable emotions, that it becomes much easier to tap into that without necessarily having to scrape open those wounds that you used to have to do it originally. And not only do those emotions seem much more accessible, but recovering afterwards, dropping them, letting them go. I was always kind of amazed watching people, like Tom Hanks or Anthony Hopkins, be able to just turn it on and off at the drop of a hat. And I'm talking like some serious heavy stuff. And then, they say cut, and they finish the joke that they were telling before they said action. I'm like, ha, ha, I'm still raw from what you just did. How do you do that? And I really have kind of found a way into that through meditation.
Yeah, I'd love to. I know we might be belaboring this, but I think it's really important, and I actually think it's why you're here, right? Was the meditation for the creative performer, and like Bradley, I get this question all the time. I teach a lot of actors to meditate, and they're terrified that if I start meditating, won't I just be like a happy bliss bunny all the time? And what if I have to do like a really intense scene? Because actually my creativity comes from my hurdy poos. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Your creativity is not coming from your stress and trauma. I promise you that. You think it does because energy either creates or it destroys. Right? So all that stuff that's happened to us, most of us, if you're in this room, we've found creativity as a means by which to heal ourselves, right? So I think what people think is if I stop having that inflow of stress, then I won't have anything to create. But that's not true at all. What actually happens is that most of us have just been dealing with stress and dealing with trauma, and we haven't had effective enough means by which to eradicate the stress from our nervous systems. So we've just been piling it up and piling it up. So it's like we have this tsunami, like this volcano of emotion just right underneath the surface. And your best friend says something to you, or a waiter says something to you, or someone cuts you off in traffic, and you want to lose your shit, and then you're just like, no, not now. And your roommate's like, I have to talk to you, like, not today. And your boyfriend's like, we need to talk. Not today. I cannot deal with that. Not now, not now. Or like your boyfriend breaks up with you and you're like, I'm fine. I didn't get that job, but I'm fine. And I didn't get into that college, but I'm fine. And this guy broke my heart, but I'm fine. I'm fucking fine. And then like here we are, like, and then we like have a nervous breakdown or something. Now what meditation does is it allows you to start unwinding that spring. Okay, it takes this like festering tsunami volcano of emotion that most of us are sitting on top of. Most of us are riding right up here. And so we're afraid to even dip our toe into it because we're afraid that if we do, it's just gonna overwhelm us. Right? And then what the meditation does is that it softens that cap on that emotion so that you actually start to have access to the entirety of your emotions at any time because you're not protecting yourself anymore. Most of us are going through life with these shields and calluses because we believe that the stuff out here can make us. Now, if I give you the power to say you have the power to make me, then you also have the power to break me. And if I give you the power to break me, then I better protect myself from you. And what meditation lets you feel viscerally, physically, is that your happiness is inside of you. So if you can't make me, then you also cannot break me, so I can put down the shields. And then every day, twice a day, you start softening those calluses, you start taking down those shields, and then the emotion, it's just then you can actually listen and respond. Because you're just a human person, you're supple.
Nice.
Angry.
I'm sitting here, I'm like, and then?
I'll say one other thing about meditation is, Emily mentioned earlier this idea in Vedic meditation, it's not about getting your mind to stop thinking. It's not about trying to stop yourself from thinking. Meditation for me in many ways has let me realize what the hell I'm thinking all the time. When most of the time I'm just like operating in the day, I have no idea the amount of sabotaging little thoughts that I'm thinking during the day. And so in meditation, when I'm given the opportunity to have a relationship with myself, to actually hear what is motivating me all the time, what's underneath the surface, that is really profound because it's only in having that relationship with myself that I can feel like I can walk into the world and not consistently hand over my power for you to make or break me, right? So when I have that relationship with myself, my worth doesn't lie in your hands. I'm not needing to defend myself consistently, which, by the way, if those gates are closed because I'm defending, what am I? Okay, we'll rewind to this. This is a big Course in Miracles idea. The idea, if you look at a little baby is really living in this space of like just here to give and receive love, completely codependent on the people around it, right? Just giving and receiving love. And then something along the way when that little baby is developing, something happens that doesn't feel like love. It happened to all of us. And we do something, like, you know those blinders that you put on horses for a horse race? Imagine that little baby started its life with like super wide open blinders. And then something happened, and so through the aperture of the baby's heart, it's just like love and creativity consistently flowing. And then something happens along the way where it's like, shit, that didn't feel good. I'm not safe to just give and receive love. So that aperture begins to close. The blinders begin to close. And every time we get triggered, those walls close, close, close. So what ends up happening is the aperture, our ability to express ourselves, to allow creativity to flow, becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. What I think is beautiful about meditation is that it just like chips away at all the leftovers. So who was it? Michelangelo was asked how he created his sculptures. And his response was, I don't create my sculptures. God creates my sculptures. The universe creates my sculptures completely perfectly in the middle of the stone, the marble, whatever it is that I approach. I approach that form knowing that it's not my job to create the perfection that's in there. It's already done. My job is rather to chip away at all the leftovers that is hiding the magnificence that's within. And that's how I see the practice of meditation. It's just chipping away. We came into the world as perfect expressions, completely innocent, unafraid. And then over time, we put up all these defenses naturally. And now it's time to just chip them away and recognize, I actually am safe here because I'm connected to my infinite self. I'm connected to a thing that lives eternally. When this body vanishes, that continues living. It didn't start when I was born. It doesn't end when I die. It's an eternal nature. And so I put less stress on what happens every moment of my life because I recognize my life is not a ticking time bomb waiting to end at any moment. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's, since, obviously we are in a room full of performers, let's maybe take a little deeper dive into some of the tools and the techniques and the benefits, specifically for performers. Obviously, at any level and at any point in your career, fear, nerves, anxiety, it's a huge part of what we face and place on ourselves and feel placed on us from others. As we do the jobs that we do, whether it's the night before an audition, whether it's sitting in the room where obviously the fine art of psych out from other performers is practiced, and or whether it's actually in the room or on the day, when the cameras roll or when you're on stage. What are some of the tools, sort of the practical tools, that can be derived from the various techniques and practices that you guys teach and study that you feel really help in those particular situations?
Yeah, so I'll go super fast. I mean, I'd say most important is to have a meditation practice, a daily meditation practice that you love. That's sort of the foundation. But that you can't do right before you walk on stage, right? That you had to do that morning. That you had to do that afternoon. But before you're about to walk on stage, there's a few really practical tips. One is power poses I've gotten really into lately. There's another TED Talk, is it Amy Cuddy? Amy Cuddy does a great TED Talk on power poses, which is basically like sometimes, our body takes the shape because of our emotion, and sometimes our emotion takes the shape because of our body. So if you sit around like this all day, this is gonna send signals to your brain. But if you're about to walk on stage and beforehand you do a little bit of Wonder Woman or you do a little bit of Victory and you just breathe like this, and then this is a great chance to do some Kundalini breath work in this big, open, confident pose. Even if you're shitting yourself inside, you going like this tricks your brain into thinking that you're actually confident and happy. And it's silly, and you gotta find a bathroom to do it because you look crazy, but it works. And so I think this is the time for mindfulness, for breath work, for power poses. The other thing is that I used to work with this therapist before I started meditating, and he was a genius. His name is Tom Jones. and he started something called the Paradox Process in New York City. And he would teach me something that was almost like laser. Now I would consider it like laser beam meditation when you have one specific thing you want to clear. And I remember every night before I used to go on stage in a chorus line, I used to say, I want nature to give me an unlimited source of bliss, fulfillment, adaptation energy so that I can be a vessel to give my gifts to this audience and not ask for anything in return for mine and everyone's highest good. And that was just my thing, you know, but like I would say, get your thing, like your thing. It's not even a request, right? Because nature's going to do it anyway, but it's just for us to remember to just whatever you can do, like Ryan was saying, to see yourself as a vessel, to see the thing as done, to infuse whoever you're about to perform for with love. It sounds hippy dippy, you guys, but the stuff works. It's been around for like 6,000 years because it works.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that. You know, our body will breathe in certain ways when we're nervous. And our breath also changes when we're completely calm and at ease. And our body follows suit. So if we can get ourselves into that physicality, it does wonders. I mean, just 3 to 5 to 10 deep belly breaths, you know, if the nerves come, oftentimes helps. Tony Robbins has a lot of great stuff to say about that. Does anyone know the work of Michael Chekhov, acting work? You know, putting the body in certain positions. There's also a great technique that sometimes I'll do in the waiting room, you know, which is always a nerve-wracking experience. You know, you come to your senses, right? What am I literally seeing right now? The colors and the way the light plays on the different faces in the audience. And you don't focus, you just kind of allow your attention to fall on what you literally see. And then you filter in, okay, what do I literally feel? My seat and my back in the chair, the clothes on my body, right? And you filter in what you hear. The kind of hum of the air conditioner and people shifting around. And so you go through all 5 senses and you just become very, very aware. This is a bit of a mindfulness practice. And it really tends to ground you in the present moment. And it works on set too. So you're available to what your partner is literally giving you. Yeah, that's about it.
That was good. Do we all just do that with him? That was that was pretty incredible.
So one more technique tool. I mentioned the idea of filling that room with light and love and blessing happiness upon everyone that's going to be in the room. That includes your competition. So I think that's a big one, a big waiting room one. You show up for the audition, you look around. All right, well, they're clearly not really, like, why the hell am I here for this one? That's one of them, right? I don't look like anybody else here. Or there's the girl that always books these roles that I always, right? So one tool that I love to use to just call the ego out there is to literally just ask that if you want to go to the extreme, just go, I bless their audition. May they have the most uplifting, incredible experience in the room. Because if I believe that it's possible for them, I'm going to believe it's possible for me as well. So that's one thing. Or you just ask, thy will be done, right? Whatever is in most alignment for the highest good for everyone here. I believe there is enough for everyone. I do not live in a world of lack. I live in a world of abundance, and I program my mind that way. So there's enough for everyone. May it be done in the highest will. The other thing I'll say is, in terms of the way the ego works, it's really there to support us. The ego gets a real bad rap in the spiritual world, but it's really there for our survival. It's a fabulous thing. Like, if you didn't have an ego and you were hungry, you might feed someone else. So it's your survival technique. The problem with it is that in terms of creative expression, it's limiting because it doesn't really want you to live outside of your comfort zone. It doesn't want you going anywhere that it doesn't know you're going to go. And in terms of a creative life well lived, it's all about living outside it's about being surprised, right? So anything you can do to, like, there's my ego at play, trying to keep me small, trying to keep me, right? Anything you can, so that will always mean blasting the room with love. It will always mean recognizing, so Course in Miracles talks a lot about the difference between content and form. So the form of the situation is how it's playing out in the physical world, right? So I'm going to an audition. I'm going to try to get a role. But the content, according to the Course, the teaching says that the content of everything we are ever doing is to give and receive love. That's it. There is nothing else we are ever to be doing except for giving and receiving love, being a vessel of love. That includes in the audition. So if you have a mantra to remind yourself, yeah, the form is I'm going on audition. The form is I'm going on a date. The form is we're speaking on a panel, right? But the content is always I'm here to receive and give love. And you repeat that mantra just to give yourself that reminder. That's probably the best thing we can take into our life as a tool consistently.
May I add one more
Sure,
thing?
of course.
Just
of
a
course.
quick analogy, and we've all touched on this. You know, these are all great short-term tactics, but the long-term strategy of having a practice, which for actors and really all craftspeople, I think goes hand in hand with other preparation. You know, our training, our diet, being in nature. All of these things as a holistic approach to being the best actor that you can be. And so the analogy is, you know, and we've all done this, we have a dentist's appointment tomorrow, and, you know, we floss the night before after not having flossed for 6 months. The idea is, you know, you have to floss every day, and you're cultivating healthy gums by virtue of this practice. So the same is true whether it's meditation or eating a certain way or living your life a certain way or studying, rehearsing, you know, honing your craft. It is a daily routine. And so that when you get to the role and to the play or on set, you're ready. You're just ready. You wake up and you're ready. There's nothing that you have to do. You just show up.
Phil, yes.
I really wish Barrett would stop interrupting. It's so rude.
Mike hug.
I feel like there's these. I'm on this panel with these three people who are like, we talk for a living. Yes, we do. We're amazing, and I'm like, give me some lines. I don't know.
I didn't get a script.
Yeah.
You know, actually, and Emily, when you were mentioning the various physical poses, and Brad, you touched on this as well, and it was so funny. I'm sitting there listening, and the whole time I realized that my fist was clenched. And the second you said that, I was like, "Hey," and it's true. I mean, just even something as simple as that. It's such a trigger for your brain to go. Clearly, you're in. This is a fight or flight, or you're nervous, or you're what is this? What is this? And it kind of. And the second I did it, I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. When you were talking about ego, actually, it kind of reminded me of that sort of left brain, right brain mentality that I think a lot of creatives certainly wrestle with. And I know that, you know, as a former acting teacher who incorporated, you know, meditation into your teaching practice, and certainly I know that there are others. I believe Craig Wallace uses meditation, and Anthony Meindl, and I love that there is just sort of this movement to, you know, to acknowledge and recognize and include you know, meditation and mindfulness, and with a regular training program. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, all of you actually, whatever your experiences are with this, how meditation has helped maybe bridge left brain thought, right brain thought, how that sort of opens up creativity, creates a certain flow or balance, and what specifically about meditation allows that to happen. I know you've mentioned before, you've touched on things like the neuroscience of creativity, which I find incredibly fascinating and would take hours to really delve into in and of itself, but please.
I can give you the Cliff's Notes of the neuroscience of creativity, and then I would really like to hear from Mr. Barrett Foa. So right brain, left brain, while on the gross physical, this is a real term because we actually have a right brain and a left brain, and they don't they're separate. The only place that the right brain and left brain touch each other is through a little white piece called the corpus callosum. And so, but when we talk about like the 1980s version of like, are you right brain or left brain? Like that's a little antiquated now. We have more sophisticated neuroscience that tells us that your creativity is not a right brain function and your critical and analytical thought is not a left brain function. What's interesting is that you can target where critical and analytical and specifically fear comes from. Fear comes from the amygdala, which is the fight or flight part of the brain, and it's the prefrontal cortex, which is right up here. This is like our critical and analytical and linguistic thought. Now, what's interesting is that so far we've not been able to pinpoint or target the part of the brain that's responsible for creativity. But what we do know is that when the whole brain lights up, and I guess I should reverse that. When you are creative, because they've actually done neuroimaging on jazz musicians and beat poets, and they'll scan their brains on the MRI machine, and when they are actively in the act of creation, the whole brain lights up. So what's interesting, and I used to talk about the analogy about how meditation takes your right brain to the gym, and that's what makes you more creative, but that's not actually accurate. What's happening is that you're getting rid of all the stress in the body, and when you meditate, you're basically telling your amygdala and the fear center of your brain that it's cool. Like, I got you, you're cool, you're safe, you don't have to protect yourself anymore, and that allows the entirety of the brain machine to start firing, and that's really what creativity is.
You reminded me of this fantastic study that I remember from school. Sorry.
Barrett's like, no, she said what I was going to say, so, you know.
I'll be quick. It was, it was a study, it was done on artists. They wanted to kind of see what was happening in the brain and what states of consciousness specifically all of these different artists were experiencing. And actors, I think, were the only group that kind of transcended to a deeper part of consciousness that was beyond thought. It was beyond critical thinking. Has anyone ever been on stage and you walk off and you cannot remember what happened? It's like, where did I go? It's a fascinating implication that we have the capacity to be so in the moment, so in the character, in the play, that we vanish, and we are that vessel. There's a fundamental need, I think, people have to alter their consciousness, and it's why little kids spin in circles, it's why people drink, and it's why people go to the theater and go see films. As actors, we are the vessel by which we can, give the experience of consciousness expansion to an audience. And people have that aha moment about the human condition. And the question becomes, can we do that, right, from an expanded state of consciousness of our own? I think that's the trick.
When you were talking about the turning off or dimming the, what was that? Amygdala? The amygdala. Just that fight or flight thing. I remember the first time I really felt that I was asked to host something at the Amundsen on like an off night, and it was like 1,000 people in the audience. And I've never really hosted anything like that. I had to like interview someone, I had to introduce people, I had to say hello to the audience. It was very like kind of out of what I normally do. And I prepared, and I was prepared, but it was the first time when I stood out on stage that I was like, where's my fight or flight thing? Like, where's that thing that I usually have in this moment where I'm like crapping my pants, like stinky sweaties, all of that. And I'm like, oh, that's not happening. I'm just here. And I'm with the audience and I'm myself and I'm prepared and I have my notes and I'm interviewing and I'm like, but I've never done anything like being Jimmy Fallon, but for 1 second or for 1 hour, I kind of could be. And I was like, that went really well. I wonder why that was. And I think I'm like, oh, I've been kind of meditating for a year now. Like, maybe that has something to do with it. And it's just, it really is just the nerve thing for me. And like, I know, like, these people, like Ryan and Emily are my friends, and we just met today, but like, they're also selling you something, but like, I don't have anything to sell you. I have anything to tell you. I don't have anything to sell you. But I'm like, I'm kind of one of you, so I can just say the nerves are like 80% better. And so that, like, I can, like, there's a lot of woo-woo going on here, and it's awesome. And that's why I'm just listening, because I'm one of you and I'm not talking as much, and I'm like, really? Cool, that's awesome. I'm taking that in. But the practicality for me is that it's changed my life. And like, I just keep being like, no, today's not the day I'm going to stop meditating. Like, it just never, I never wake up to be like, that's not happening today. And I'm like, how it still kind of astonishes me that I'm still going with it. Because if someone was like, do you want to do this 20 minutes twice a day? I'm like, no. If that happened 3 years ago, I'm like, absolutely not. This is This is too much woo. This is too much. But I'm like, but these are the things that are behind it, like the science and the Course of Miracles and the love and the this and that. And like, so that gives it a base and a grounding. So it's good to hear. But sometimes I kind of tune out a little bit when it's too much. And I'm here to tell you, like, just do it.
I'm curious, actually. Are you, or were you, a sort of cerebral actor? I mean, did you ever like sort of get in your head and kind of
Yes.
I mean, like you're like, you're in the moment and you're acting, and it's like, oh, okay. Then all of a sudden you get like really conscious of like what your face looks like and how you're saying that line. And
I mean, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have you a shift away from that now, or like you just haven't noticed it and it's like, oh no, that's true. That's
absolutely. I'm, yes. Sorry, I don't know if that. I think I feel like I kind of touched on that, so I don't want to like repeat myself. But it's that I'm just, it's less Cindy Brady. It's just more of like I'm part of something bigger. The detachment thing is kind of the word I think I was looking for earlier that you guys both touched on. I'm like, oh yeah, detachment. Like to an end goal, to getting it right. Just like you're just flowing more in life, and then also on stage, and then also on camera, and you're just like, there's just a little more of this.
What's woo about that?
I know what is woo about that, but there's something incredibly woo about it, and there's also something like, oh, it's not, because it just happens, and you don't think about it because you just sit down 2 times a day, and then it just happens to you. Which is what's awesome about it. You're not like, let me click that thing in, remember that technique, let me remember that. It just goes.
Good to go to a question actually from the audience, from Nancy Rothman. If she's there. Interesting question. Can meditating help in memorizing lines and retaining lines?
That's another thing that I was like, I wanted to say that too. That was another thing that I was like, no bueno, because I was so obsessed with getting it right. I couldn't just go off, like kind of not go off the page. Not that we're doing that on NCSLA, but, right? No, right, CBS? No, we're saying the lines, but it's just like, it's less like I have a grip on it and I have to remember. Because also I play I'm like the fact machine. You know, I'm the briefing, these are the people, and this is the terrorist's name, and this is the place. And look, I'm the nerd. I'm the computer guy. So there's just a lot of information to get out there, and facts and lists. And it's just, and memorization has never been my thing because I'm probably too attached to an outcome and to make it perfect. And with this little bit of detachment within me, I'm like, it's okay. It happens or it doesn't happen, but it just flows more. And memorization is definitely come easier. Definitely.
Nice. Another question I got, not so much about acting technique, but a few different performers that I spoke with who knew that we were going to be doing this panel were curious about, there seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of creatives where they deal with certain psychological, emotional issues. I know many people in this industry are in therapy or on prescription medication, self-medicate, whether it's, sex, alcohol, drugs. if you could talk a little bit, any of you on the panel, sort of about if you can still partake in any of those and have a successful meditation practice, and if a successful meditation practice or a regular practice, how that affects the need for those type of things.
You can't have sex. We didn't mention that. Is that? I don't know if that's like a deal breaker for anyone.
Ryan, you're off coffee for the year, right? Or alcohol? You're off alcohol for the
Alcohol
year.
for the year.
How's that going?
It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to drink all the time, but
I think
it's
about
great.
you every time I drink. I think about you. I'm like, Ryan's so much better than I am.
Sugar would be the real kicker.
Yeah.
That would be the real kicker. So I really understand the plight of the actor and of the creative. God, it's like you have such a desire to be creatively fulfilled, and then you step into an industry that so often is really just about the bottom line. It's really about what's our foreign sales and how much money is this going to make, and that's just the way it is. So that's one thing. Another thing is what I mentioned earlier in terms of depression that very often sets in with creatives, actors, is this stress that we put on ourselves to be the creativity. This idea that we own our genius. I think this shift to hosting it as opposed to being responsible for it is a really important stress to relief. And certainly meditation and many spiritual practices help us learn to trust in a flow. Like what Barrett was talking about. What's so fascinating about this is like you're coming into meditation within the context of the conversation on how it's going to affect your career, but it can't help but affect every single area of your life. Because what it's doing is it's changing the hardware, it's changing your operating system, it's changing your belief system. And we've so learned about a world of lack and a world of competition, and there's only a certain amount of jobs available for a certain huge flood of people, and more people coming every year. And that can only help but add to an unbelievable amount of stress that we're all putting on ourselves. And so finding ways to switch that thought system is profoundly influential. Like Bradley was talking about I lost my train of thought.
Can you drink and meditate?
No. You are
At the same
allowed
time.
a few days. What?
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time, at least. Yeah, don't drink and meditate.
Have a drinking meditation.
I would win that challenge.
Thank you for grabbing me.
There are no prohibitions. Is that what you were going to?
Yeah, no,
allude to?
yeah.
I mean, but we do, and Emily, might chime in here too in terms of her experience with her students. I've definitely seen people who perhaps were abusing certain things or certain activities. That tends to normalize because you are finding that fulfillment inside. And you're not seeking it, in the bottle or through some experience.
27% of American adult women are on anti-anxiety medication right now. 27%, and about 26 or 4 are on antidepressants. So if you add that up, that's 40-something% of American adult women who are on anti-anxiety or antidepressants. You guys, this is the world we have to change.
Absolutely.
This is the world we have to change. You don't have a Zoloft deficiency. You just don't. However, all of this stuff that we've been talking about, living in the world today is stressful for the body, and that has to go somewhere. And most of us don't have access to meditation, so we're trying to solve the problem, right? We try to solve it with alcohol or sex or antidepressants or anti-anxiety or therapy or whatever we can do. And I think that hedonists make the best spiritualists. That looking to vodka or looking to Vedic meditation, the desire is the same. We're just looking for unity and bliss. It's just that one is destructive and the other is constructive. Check out my book, From Vodka to Veda. Coming to you soon.
Well, no. Actually, we are. We've found ourselves at the end of our time here. So that's actually a perfect segue. Before we go, if each of you could share with everyone quickly what you have going on, where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you or follow you, or please.
So I have a free talk tonight at 7:30 p.m. at the Den Meditation, and I'm gonna go. It'll be a pretty deep dive on the neuroscience of Vedic meditation, and then I'm running a course here in LA this week. It's Thursday through Sunday. It's 2 hours a day for 4 days, and then you'll have this Vedic practice to take with you for life. But the prerequisite is coming to the talk tonight. If you can't make it, just zivameditation.com. That's my website. You can find all the things there. Z-I-V-A. It's a Sanskrit word that means bliss. zivameditation.com, and everything you need to know is there.
Barrett Foa, BARRETTFOA, is my Instagram and Twitter. And NCISLA is coming back for an 8th season. And I'm doing a solo cabaret show at Rockwell this Sunday. Not too many seats left, so get on that. And then, but I'm gonna hopefully do that more in this coming year. And there's one thing I wanted to say about coffee. Sorry.
Go.
I have coffee in the morning, but like in that 4, 5, 6 time of day where you're like, time for a coffee, I need that thing. It's so good to be like, I'm not gonna go into that Starbucks. I'm gonna sit in this chair, and I just feel so much better than I do than having a cup of coffee. It's so liberating.
Okay, so my meditation website is MDT8. M as in Mary, D as in David, T as in Tom, and then the number 8, meditate. I also teach here in LA and ongoing privately in people's homes, or people come to me in Brentwood. So you can reach me at bradley@mdt8.com. The film I directed that's populated with meditators on the cast and crew, including Emily Fletcher and myself, is Kensho at the Bedfellow. We're playing festivals. We just won a bunch of awards, Best Feature Film, Quality Film Festival. Our next festival is in Palm Springs. It's called the AM/FM Festival. And the movie's website is kenshofilm.com. I think that's it. Okay.
So I send out a daily morning email every day. It's totally free. It's help people wake up in the morning. It's just nice to get a little love in your inbox because you're probably checking your cell phone anyway as soon as you wake up, right? Nice to get that little reminder to take the pause and suggest a little morning practice. So you can sign up for that at wakingupwithryan.com.
I highly suggest it. It's awesome.
Thanks. And then through there, I announce, like, when I'm teaching classes. I teach a meditation class here in LA. For right now, it might not be lasting too much longer, so jump in when you can. Tuesday, Thursday nights at Wanderlust in Hollywood. And then, dare I say, we had the first week already. Tomorrow morning we'll start the second week. If there are people interested in joining, I'm doing a creativity within the entertainment industry 4-week workshop at the Den Meditation. It's tomorrow morning. It's at 10:30, and there are a couple of spots for people who want to jump in after. So we could talk about that after if you're interested in that. And that's what's up. I also love Instagram. The Den is on La Brea and 4th. It's near Moto Yoga. It's new.
I'm teaching there as well, weekly. Yeah. One more thing that I wanted to say really quickly is that,
Please.
There's a very small percentage of the universe that is conscious enough to be aware of its own existence. So human beings kind of make up that small percentage, but actors and artists are an even smaller percentage that can then hold that mirror up to nature, right, and just show an audience how beautiful the universe is in the first place.
And on behalf of all of us, can I just say thank you guys so much for coming out. It was incredible. Thank you.